Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankaracharya-Madhyamam Asmadacharya-Paryantam Vande Guru-Paramparam. Om. So we continue to look at the first shloka of the Gita, and last time we looked at Daivam. So Daivam is, what people call luck. It's not really luck. It is your own prarabdha fructifying to give you the results of your own past karma. That's what it is. So when you experience good luck, it is punya karma. When you experience bad luck, it is pap karma. And we spoke about how the terminology of luck could be misleading because luck has an arbitrary sense to it. That it is arbitrary, it is accidental, it is a toss of a coin, you got lucky or you got unlucky. That is not how Prarabdha karma works. Prarabdha is part of the order, it is part of Ishvara's unfolding, and everything is determined in the vision of the cosmic order, which is harmonious, which is well put together, and which is not random at all. It is very orderly. So, we are very lucky that we have such a nice understanding of this idea. Um, all right. So, um, if somebody would like to read qualities of a mature person, uh, Srikanth,
Right.
if you want to go.
Yeah, I can read. Qualities of a mature person. The one who does not leave the adrishta to the hands of chance, the one who does something to change the adrishta, is considered to be a bhakta and is religiously mature. You may call such a person a religious person, but I would refer to him or her as a mature person who recognizes the unseen hands that shape and are behind those unknown, behind these known hands. Such hands are not the hands of chance. They are the hands of the law, hands that are the law and are looked upon as the Lord. The law is not separate from the Lord, and the wielder of the laws is also the Lord. Throughout the Gita, Krishna describes the person who recognizes this factor and at the same time recognizes the necessity of his or her own effort as a mature person, a yogi. A mature person is one who has a fear of adharma, one who tries to conform to dharma. Dharmaputra, his four brothers, and his entire family underwent many privations for a long period of time only because of their commitment to dharma. Having such a commitment, Arjuna naturally recognizes his own prowess and believed in his skills. He had self confidence and was a person who knew the importance of effort. He did not keep beseeching the Lord, please give me, give me, give me. He knew that would not work.
This is very important, and it's worth pausing here to just discuss how society has sort of evolved to this give me, give me, give me state from a sense of acceptance and trust in oneself to be able to get things done. So what I mean by that is, I'll not give the name of the group, but there's a great acharya, um, and there were certain devotees of this acharya, and there's a group associated with it on Facebook somewhere. And there are a lot of people who constantly implore the devotees in that group that I am going through this issue, I'm going through that issue. My mother-in-law is being very nasty to me. My father-in-law says this to me. My brother is this way. My husband is this way. My wife is this way. All sorts of different complaints you see in the group, and it's more like, could you please send my prayers to this Paramacharya, that kind of thing. Like please, if you could convey this, his blessings are going to fix everything in my life. And several times I've commented over there that usually for like psychological issues, psychiatric related issues, Adhyatma is not the first line of um, defense. Adhyatma comes much later. There's a certain level of maturity that you require to be able to integrate everything in the vision of the self. But you can't say that, array, this Adhyatma will solve all the problems, my Guru's blessings will solve everything. Yeah, of course, the Guru's blessings can definitely how do you say reorder the some of the prarabdha karma just based on Ishvara's krupa and the the I guess tapas and other things that the gurus have done, they are able to influence that to a certain degree. But beyond a certain point, it doesn't help. And it doesn't help because first of all, that is not their job. It's not their job to work with every Tom, Dick, and Harry. Even if it is a student to say that, oh, no, 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 my blessings alone are sufficient. You don't need to worry about your life. You don't need to change anything in your life. Everything will happen because I bless you. No, it doesn't work that way. We have to fix our own problems. Um, and this thing, we spoke about this verbiage over here, the fear of adharma. It's not really a fear as we spoke about, right? That fear is kind of a recognition, but it starts with fear because today if you are going to tell a child there's a place called Naraka, there's a place called Swarga, you talk about Santa, you talk about being a good kid, all of these things, they are to induce a certain discipline that okay, there are good habits to cultivate, there are not so good habits to cultivate, and these are the things that we are trying to refine in our lives so that we can become a better person, right? So in order to cultivate a certain set of values, a value system, it is not harmful to start with that fear factor because what is the fear over here? It is not this Abrahamic kind of a fear that, oh, if I don't do this, if I don't worship this, God is going to come after me and I'm going to be confined to eternal hell and things like that. No, that is not the fear over here. The fear here is a recognition that if I jump off a cliff, I'm going to die. It's a recognition of the order. So the same way, that recognition that if I do not give in to dharma, and if I continue to stick to the path of adharma, then there are certain orders that are at play in this universe, in this cosmos that Ishvara has put together, which will determine the outcome of my actions. If my actions are oriented towards adharma, the outcomes of those actions will be pap karma. If my actions are oriented towards dharma, the outcomes of those actions will be punya karma. Nobody wants to suffer. Everybody wants to live a happy and successful life full of joys, full of pleasures, full of sweetness and grace and all of these nice things. Nobody wants to, be diseased. Nobody wants to lose money. Nobody wants all of these experiences which cause pain and suffering in life. And so there is a certain fear that one has of that also. And that is what is meant over here by fear. It is a sort of a recognition that I do not wish to suffer. And if I don't wish to suffer, it pays for me to stick to dharma. Does that make sense? So that is the primary objective that Puja Sambi is conveying. And of course, after a certain point, when the recognition is there, even that fear which is there falls away. So fear is really an insecurity. Today, if I have to ask any one of you, why do you go to work? Be honest. If you had a flush bank account and there was not a single dollar that you would ever need to earn in your life and everything was taken care of for the next 5 generations, would you honestly wake up and go to work? You wouldn't. You wouldn't. And so you know that if I don't go to work the next day, there is a certain outcome that's associated with that. And you know that if I don't keep up a certain level of performance, there's a negative outcome that's associated with that as well. And so I need to do these things. So again, that is not fear per se, but it is more a recognition that if I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And that is what it is, actions and consequences. But beyond a certain level, one begins to see that this dharma is not something one has to attune oneself to, but it is a natural consequence of rising chitta shuddhi. Eh, Dharma leads to chitta shuddhi, and chitta shuddhi makes dharma a natural outcome of life. One's natural proclivity, one is predisposed to dharma, based on the chitta shuddhi that they've already earned. They cannot think of going against the order because they are so attuned to the order. Because dharma is the order, and when one says that this chitta shuddhi is there is not some garbage can in the mind that one is trying to dump all the kachra into. But this chitta shuddhi is essentially one's how shall we say, one's recognition that the mind having its basis in sattva guna, because it is sattva, and sattva guna manifesting as the order are not two separate things. The mind itself is a part of the order, and when that recognition is there, then there is no such thing as one having to gain chitta shuddhi, because chitta shuddhi becomes a natural outcome of that recognition. Does that part make sense? Huh.
So, Prashantji, this concept of recognition of dharma and um, the natural order, that how do we connect that? Can you put that together with the terminology used in the first paragraph here, which is the hands of chance, um, and then unseen hands, known hands. Can you? Is there, first of all, is it right to connect that? And the concept of a bhakta here, I'm assuming, is a person who recognizes this order and acts in accordance with that order. But can you just like put those things together, the first paragraph and the second paragraph?
Sure, sure. So I'm just going through that. So the one who does not leave the adrashta to the hands of chance, the one who does something to change the adrashta is considered to be a bhakta. So there is a lot of sukruta and dushkruta that is there in our account. Lots of it. The recognition of that also implies that I do not want to suffer the ill effects of my papa karma that is lying dormant, that is about to manifest. And so I try to tap into the order to even alter that. Because if there was a certain action that led to that pap karma account blooming more and more and more and becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and just ballooning out of proportion, there are also certain set of actions which can subvert that karma. So it could be in terms of prayaschitta karma. It could usually there are two types of actions, right? Actions which earn punya, actions which earn papa karma. But then you also have prayaschitta karma, which nullifies the effect of the papa karma. So that is again a recognition that okay, I've probably there are certain things that I'm suffering right now. Maybe I need to do some nivaran, some sort of puja, some sort of charity, some sort of donation. Maybe there's something in my past life where I made somebody suffer. Maybe I need to, um, just reverse that trajectory and do something which will wipe out the effects that I'm suffering right now. So that is again the recognition that okay, there is this thing called an adrashta. There's also the recognition that this adrashta is not random per se, but it is something that's earned by me. But I'm not just going to leave it at that, saying that no, I'm suffering. It's okay if I'm suffering. No, you will do something about it, and that's where it connects to this thing over here that Arjuna naturally recognized his own promise and believed in his skills that you will do something about it. And that's why here in the first para it says the one who does something to change his adrashta is considered a bhakta. So here, even tapping to the order is a way to change our drashta. Because what happens is, I had spoken about this in an earlier satsanga. This is just my personal interpretation and theory here, but it's more like my understanding of the order leads me to believe that there are efficiencies which are inbuilt into the cosmos. Today, you talk about this whole Doge organization and how they are trying to bring about efficiency in government departments. But Ishvara doesn't have that inefficiency. Ishvara has order, this governing factor that Ishvara is this great Prajapati that Bhagwan is. There is no inefficiency in Bhagwan's order. You don't need Elon Musk or anybody to fix the cosmos. The cosmos is what it is. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. And part of it is that if you have this infinite amount of punya karma and infinite amount of pap karma sitting in your prananda karma, it's your sanchita karma bag, all of this belongs to you. This bank account belongs to you. But there will be a certain order in terms of which karma will be experienced by you before the other. And my understanding, the efficient understanding of the cosmos, is that that Ishvara has optimized for the shortest distance between ignorance and knowledge. Because ultimately, mukti is the teleology. There's a teleological order in this cosmos. Like how you have water that flows from top to the bottom, electricity from higher potential to lower potential. Ultimately, every jiva's trajectory towards mukti is shortened by a certain amounts of actions that the person can perform. And over here, I'm not saying that mukti is a result of action, but I'm saying that the circumstances which lead one to the path of mukti can be shortened through a certain set of actions, and therefore, which karma fructify first and which karma fructify later can be influenced by us tapping into the order and reaching out to Ishvara, and also gaining the qualities of a mumukshu and a jignasu. If that makes sense. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is, if I have this infinite bag of punya and pap karma, and infinities by themselves cannot be compared because their infinity is per se, then if I show an inclination, if I send a signal to Ishvara that yes, I recognize that there are certain things that I've been doing which are not so good. I'm trying to reform. I'm trying to mend my ways, and I'm trying to get back on the path of dharma. And eventually, one also is trying to get onto the road of moksha. One is becoming a mumukshu. and then one becomes a jignasu, and then one takes to jnana, then these signals will essentially fructify those karmas, those punya karmas, in the form of shastra, in the form of guru, in the form of a certain birth that is predisposed to this kind of teaching, a mind that is predisposed to this kind of teaching, an environment that allows you to stay in touch with this kind of teaching, and so that the set of punya karma phalas which are conducive to mukti will fructify before the papa karmas which are not conducive to mukti. And that is how you tap into this order, and that is why, again, it's going back to, you don't leave this to chance which karma will fructify, and you play an important integral role in influencing what comes to you by tapping into that order. So it's so beautiful, like, when you think about it, ours is the only teaching where this beautiful unfolding is presented, what the order is, because everywhere else it's about do's and don'ts and 10 commandments and this commandment and that commandment. No, there should be an 11th commandment, that thou shalt not follow any commandment, because Bhagwan is not here to command us. Bhagwan is not here to instruct us. Bhagwan is here to guide us as we wish to be guided. So, Bhagwan simply says that, look, this is the order. These are the rules of the game. How you want to play your cards is up to you. But these are the rules of the game. The rules of the game are, you do this, you get that. You do that, you get that. Right? It's just actions and consequences, and we are treated not as children that don't eat this apple and don't do but we are treated as mature jivas, mature creatures capable of contemplation and self-reflection, who are capable of making our own choices and understanding the law of consequence. Very beautiful. That is what karma is all about. There's no higher, superior force or power that's telling you, okay, aisa hi karo and waisa hi karo. That is rubbish. It's all Abrahamic. It's amazing
Yeah,
when you think about
thank
it. So if you'd like to continue. Sorry, sir. A couple of other things I wanted to mention. Um, so when you tap into this order, and I've advised this to a couple of people who even reached out to me recently, in fact, is they when people suffer um, things unnecessarily, but they don't necessarily have the tools to deal with it. Um, Adhyatma is one tool. Sadhana is another tool. Adhyatma and sadhana are not the same thing. Sadhana enables Adhyatma to happen. Sadhana is, essentially you do some form of tapasya, you do some form of mantra japa, you do some form of seva. These are all different types of sadhanas. It is in the realm of karma yoga. And along with that, along with karma yoga, it is also essential to reach out for help. Sometimes, I've encountered folks who don't have a good support system. Maybe their family is just so toxic that they don't have people to reach out to. Maybe make some friends, find somebody who has a similar set of pursuits. All of these things can help. And if the problem is significant enough, go to a therapist. I recently spoke to somebody who was like embarrassed to say that they are taking therapy, and I'm like, why? What's there to be embarrassed about? It's you know, I think there's a lot of courage that's required to say I need help. In fact, it's not just courage, but it's also maturity. Because imagine the vast number of people who need help who don't think that they need help. That is again a lack of recognition of the order, because there's a psychological order also at play. And so it is very important for us to be able to recognize where we are falling short, where we need a helping hand, and where we can lift ourselves up. So, it's again a level of maturity, that how much I can handle by myself, how much I can handle with the help of somebody else. And ultimately, I keep suggesting this sort of, ad nauseum to the group, that if one doesn't have a guru, then it's really, one is taking their life towards entropy. Because after, I've encountered so many people in this Vedantic journey, and some people, even after 5, 10, 15 years of exposure to different teachings, they try to make a khichdi out of the teaching. Thoda idhar se seekhenge, thoda udhar se seekhenge, they'll mix this theology, they'll mix that theology, they listen to this person, Acharya, they listen to that Acharya, and then they'll think that somehow they are wise enough to integrate it all together in their head. But the fact of the matter is that when we talk about a pramana is not subject to one's individual personal choice. And if you look at Vedanta as a pramana, then you will begin to see that there are so many conflicts with other systems also, that at the end of the day, one is forced to decide which one to go. So that also requires a certain level of maturity, and I would say openness, and also not being too bogged down by one's past. Because more often than not, the process of unlearning is the toughest part of studying Vedanta than the learning part. And if one has acquired knowledge from a wrong source, it is very difficult to override that because it has already created certain vasanas, and these impressions are so hard to eradicate because one already thinks that they understand, but the vantage point from which they are perceiving the whole subject matter is completely flawed. And it may take them 5, 10, 15, 30 years also perhaps, and they will not realize that, okay, that whole thing that they've been internalizing is built on a false platform. So maturity is seeking help, and again, going to a guru who is a sampradaya with guru is also tapping into that order. So here, this is where we take comfort in Arjuna's example that he recognized Ishvara, Krishna both as Ishvara, Krishna as the order, Krishna as his friend, and Krishna also as his guru. And that guru figure is the one who guides him throughout the 18 chapters of the Gita. Very, very lovely it is. We may read next para or chapter or topic.
Qualities for success. In order to be successful, 6 qualities are required: Udyama, proper effort; Sahasa, perseverance; Dhairya, courage; Buddhi, knowledge; Shakti, skill and resources; and Parakrama, the capacity to overcome obstacles. You may have courage and enthusiasm, but no proper effort at the right time. On the other hand, you may have right effort but no enthusiasm. You may also have the necessary enthusiasm to persevere, but if after some time you have not accomplished what you set out to accomplish, you may give up due to lack of courage. In warfare, the knowledge of logistics is very important. You need to know how to approach the enemy, how to enter the opponent's ranks, and how to get out again. Skill and resources are also required. Without resources, what is the use of planning? Such effort is useless. If something requires manpower, you must have that. If raw material or skill is required, you must have that also. Finally, you must have the capacity to tide you over an obstruction, parakrama, to be able to encounter and deal with forces that are inimical to you. You must be like a flowing river, unmindful of all obstructions. If a huge mountain is there, the river simply flows around it. It does not stop. If the obstruction is a simple rock, the river jumps over it. If it is a bigger rock, it simply goes around or swallows it and flows over it. If it comes to a valley, the river fills the valley first and then continues flowing. That is the nature of a river. It does not see an obstruction as an obstruction. Even if these 6 qualities are present, we cannot say with any degree of certainty that a person will meet with success. There is still that unknown factor to be recognized, Daiva, that extended helping hand to be sought. Dharmaputra and Arjuna recognized it. They did not go to the forest because they were afraid of Duryodhana or of a fight. They went only to conform to Dharma because they recognized Daiva. They knew that you never get away with what you do.
So this sort of brings me back to another point in the previous section that I wanted to make, which is when we talk about this whole thing about recognizing the order and to live by certain principles, having such a commitment not just in oneself but to dharma. Right? This part, Dharma Putra, his 4 brothers, his entire family underwent many privations for a long time for the commitment to dharma. This is something that we see. I would say, at least certainly I've lost, but society as a whole, like we've lost the ability to cheerfully accept difficult situations for the sake of dharma. We've lost the ability to sacrifice small things for the sake of dharma. We've lost the ability to align to dharma for small inconveniences that we face in life. And in olden days, there used to be a certain honor culture. Right? If you're familiar with this, um, like for instance, why do you think there are so many Buddhist countries around the periphery of Bharat, but hardly any Buddhists in Bharat itself. And I'm not talking about these deranged uh, Ambedkarites, but I'm just saying like proper Buddhist monasteries and like proper like a Buddhist culture that you would see somewhere in Thailand or Japan or wherever, or Tibet for that matter, or Bhutan. Why don't you see it in Bharat? So in those days there was this honor that intellectual honesty also you can call it, that if two people are having a discussion, one person says the sky is green, another person says the sky is blue. Okay, it could be a matter of difference for whatever reason. But now, at the end of the discussion, somewhere, based on the logic, based on the dialectical approach, one person will ultimately come out as the winner if they are both equipped to be able to go through this process. The person who doesn't recognize it has to accept, or rather, the person who did not recognize it before but recognizes it now has to accept the conclusion of the person who is right. But somehow, in the world that we live in today, we've gotten into this agree to disagree mentality. And some people say that, it's a very respectful thing to do to agree to disagree. And I find it the most disrespectful, the most insane thing that we can do, especially with like a loved one, for instance, where we say, no, let us agree to disagree. And why is that dangerous? First of all, because what we are saying is, it is not important to have a process of truth seeking. That's the first thing that we are establishing. That look, it is not important for me to be able to communicate and articulate and present why I think this is a fact. It's not important for me whether you accept it or not. It's not important for me whether you are equipped with the right tools required to uncover the truth yourself. Let's just agree to disagree because this whole thing takes too much time and effort. And that's very disappointing in terms of like being able to communicate with, especially like a spouse, for instance. One should never say that I agree, let's agree to disagree on this point. Hash it out. Stay awake till 2 o'clock at night if you have to, but make sure that you don't go to sleep until one of you sees the other person's perspective. Now, these disagreements are not talking about as a matter of taste. Oh, I like Beethoven. Oh, I like Bach. I think Bach is better than Beethoven. That's a subjective taste. I'm talking about disagreements when it comes to certain objective facts that can be arrived at logically. I cannot arrive at logically. Well, now sure, one can arrive at logically to say Bach is better than Justin Bieber. You can logically arrive at that by looking at the order of the music. Because if you look at the order as a certain principle, then you see which one is well ordered. In fact, there's this whole set of compositions by Bach called the well-ordered clavier. So anyway, it's beautiful because it was all in the service of their notion of God, but still it was in the service of God. And they saw music as part of the divine order. In fact, even if you go back to ancient Greece, they talked about what is it called, the music of the cosmos, or I forget, there is an expression. Um, um, I forget what that expression is, but even the movement of the planets and the stars and the sun and the whole solar system and then how things move and evolve in the night sky, there was a certain harmony, and people recognize that as well. Pythagoras also recognized a certain harmony in numbers, right? And so when we recognize a certain harmony, even in the way we have opinions, one cannot but say that, okay, let's figure out what the truth is. Because truth seeking should be ingrained in our DNA. It should not be a matter of habit. That I choose to live this way, therefore this is the right approach to life. Right? So there should be a truth seeking endeavor. And that is how you want to present yourselves to your loved one as well. That make sure that you're both truth seekers. Now, why does it come back to this whole honor culture? In ancient days, if you look at the samurai also, for instance, right? Of course, this is a sort of a stupid and extreme example, but perhaps it's not that stupid also. That if they lost in a certain battle, then they would, they stab themselves with their sword. They'll get on their knees and they'll do this. So, I mean, maybe that's a little extreme, but at least they had the humility to say to be a graceful loser. As opposed to saying, "Nee, tune cheated, you cheated, you cheated. I actually won, but you cheated, and you tricked me, and you did this, and you did that, and you struck me before I could look at it." No, I lost, you won. I am dishonored. Don't do that. But I'm just saying that there's a certain level of honor that was there in those days. There was a lot of honor in society. It was the same honor that led Ram Bhagwan to go off to the forest. The same honor led the Pandavas to go off to the forest. The same honor also led, the whole Kurukshetra Yuddha, because ultimately they decided that look, now it is not our inconvenience or the fact that you've relegated us to forest life that we are fighting against. The whole of Bharat Vash is at stake. You are an evil, despotic, ruler. You will do nothing but harm to the people whom you will rule. In another 50, 60, 100 years of your regime, the entire country will be unrecognizable and lawless. There will be lawlessness everywhere. And that recognition also, which was a great violation of the order, was the reason why the Kurukshetra was fought. So sometimes you need to fight your battles. You cannot. Hindus, Indians especially, have become the most passive of all people for some. We can't blame colonialism forever. At some point, we have to say that okay, it's been a generation or two since we've gotten independence. Let's move on. Let's move on from our victimhood and let's take stock of our lives. It relates to many things also. And this is probably a bit of a rant, but I was thinking about this deeply. If you live in the United States, for instance, and if you are familiar with the tech industry over here, what is the tech industry of India? Now you'll talk about Wipro, Infosys, TCS, what other companies? Similar companies are there, but they are basically offering services to the American companies, right? American employees will hire the services of these Indian techies as contractors, and essentially that's what it is. It is QA and testing and some basic writing code. But we've lost the ability to say, you know what? Let's completely look at our civilizational narrative with a blank slate. Let's not be burdened by the past that we've inherited in terms of like colonial power or this sense of servitude or working for multinationals and all these things. Let's take a fresh look at life and figure out what can we do that's really going to um, break new ground in terms of whether it is technology, it could be research, it could be art, it could be whatever, any subject you think about. And somewhere along the line, we've lost that ability to say, um, let's take a fresh look at things because that intellectual honesty is lacking. But all it takes is tapping into the order to figure out that, okay, here's the world that I've inherited. Here's a certain system and order that I've inherited. Here are certain family traditions I've inherited. Here is the culture within which I am born. Let's take a fresh look at these things. How much of it is still relevant? How much of it is still dogmatic? How much of it is orthodoxy? How much of it is, rebelling for the sake of rebelling? And let's figure out which of these elements align to the order and let's start working to realign these things together. So there's a very deep process when it comes to recognizing the order because it takes you down many, 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 many rabbit holes. And you see that there is nothing in life, there's no aspect of living and reality that we experience where this order is not relevant to us because this order pervades all of that reality. Every inch of our experience is pervaded by this order. And every decision that we make is either in conformity or against the order. And how do we conform to this order? First by recognizing it and then by choosing it. If you recognize an order, you can still be prone to certain weaknesses which may pull you against it. But first, that recognition, and then the choice. The choice is very important. The recognition is even more important because it gets you started. But even after recognizing, are we ready to commit to the order? That is a choice. That takes a lot of gumption. And I think as a civilization, that's something that we've lost over time. Again, very disappointing that we had the Mahakumbh. What it happens once every 144 years, a major event. And what were the sound bites that came out of it? IIT wala guru, right? That some IIT Baba, and then some Bollywood actress who became some Mahamandaleshwar of the Kindara, what is it called, Akhada, and then that the girl who was selling garlands, the Amberite girl, I forget what her Mona Lisa her name was, and then pictures of her. We've fallen so low as a civilization where even great events that happen so rarely escape us because somehow we've been able to recognize the greatness of what's unfolding before us. Anyway, there's a very high level of insecurity that we have as a civilization, and we need to break out of that insecurity. I feel, and that's why, even the fact that there are so many thousands, tens of thousands, lakhs of great Mahatmas, sadhus, Aguri Babas and Mahamandaleshwaras and other people who showed up at the Akhada. I mean, not Akhada, at the um, at Prayagraj for the event. Um, it was in Prayag, wasn't it, or was it in Nasik? I even forget. I think it was in Prayag, right? Mahakumini. It was in one of these great tirthas. And then the whole of the country for a week or so they were enamored by some guy who became a quote unquote a sannyasi because he went to IIT. So again, that colonial mindset that we have, where somehow an education from an elite institution is sort of a proxy for the sadhana that one has acquired, which is not the same thing. I'd much rather study from somebody who's traditionally been through the process of unfolding the I would say prasthanatraya and other things than somebody who went to IIT and then decided to do some soul searching. It's about recognizing how to tap into the order and which resources to go there. And that's why over here somewhere in one of these paragraphs it also talked about how we need to recognize the resources that we lack and the resources that are available to us. We need to know who the resources are, what the resources are, and what that gap is. Do a gap analysis. Okay, so that's all I had on this. Any questions before we proceed? Okay, I think we'll read one more topic and then close. Oops. Um,
Is it the only way okay. Krishna as the unknown factor. Arjuna, being a mature person, knew the necessity of recognizing the unknown factor, which for him was Daiva, Ishvara, the Lord. He recognized it in Krishna. Krishna was there and he told Arjuna he was available. Arjuna recognized him as grace in flesh and blood. Grace does not fight. It is not a weapon, a bow or arrow, a place or time. It is something that is not visible. Here, however, grace was visible in the form of Krishna with hands and legs, always wearing a smile as though he knew nothing. This was Krishna, and for Arjuna, mere Krishna was enough. One can always fight if one has to. With the six qualities required for success, one can take care of the obstructions. However, the seventh factor is in Bhagavan, the Lord. Arjuna recognized this factor in the Lord and knew it made the difference between victory and defeat. He wanted only grace. Therefore, he wanted Krishna with him. Duryodhana viewed things differently. He was happy with the outcome and thought Arjuna was an idiot because Duryodhana's belief was only in strength. Because he knew that strength required effort, he was also a great believer in effort, which was why he went to Krishna to seek his help. Duryodhana was a man of great effort and had planned well for this day. He was continually scheming. He saw to it that Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Jayadratha, and others felt obliged to him only because he felt they were very important to his strength. Naturally, then, Duryodhana believed only in the strength of Krishna's army, not in Krishna's grace. In addition, he got the army he wanted. Thus, Duryodhana and Arjuna felt equally victorious. What a proposition! Because they were two such different people, they could both be happy with the outcome. No judgment would make both the affected parties feel victorious. But here, Duryodhana thought he was the victor, and so did Arjuna. How could this be? That is because these two men had two types of thinking, two different commitments, and two different attitudes. Arjuna was happy that Krishna would be with him, and Duryodhana was happy that Krishna's army would be with him. Thus, they represented two forces. Krishna then was going to be with the Pandavas. Where would he be during the war? Arjuna wanted him to be nearby. But where would he put him? His chariot had only two seats, one at the back for himself and the other in the front for his driver. Given the arrangement, Arjuna could not ask Krishna to sit beside him. However, a double seater could have been arranged. When you're preparing for war, it does not take much time to create a new chariot with two back seats. But if Krishna were to sit on one side or the other of Arjuna, how could Arjuna draw inspiration from Krishna during the battle? As soon as he turned his head towards Krishna, he could lose the battle. Arjuna's opponents were Bhishma, Drona, and Karna, among others, none of whom was a mediocre fighter. One blink of the eye, and Arjuna would be opening his eyes in heaven. Because his opponents were not ordinary men, Arjuna knew that the only way to win the war was to keep Krishna in mind and fight, which meant that Krishna would have to be in front of him. He therefore asked Krishna to be his charioteer. He said, "You told me you would not fight. However, driving a chariot is not fighting. Will you drive my chariot, Krishna?" Krishna agreed, thinking it would be fun to see the show. He would have a front row seat, so to speak.
Beautiful, beautiful. See, the buddhi is the one that guides. The buddhi leads the way. And so Krishna sitting ahead led the way. Buddhi is not at your side. Buddhi is always kept in front. And yeah, I mean, I would say we should all keep Krishna Bhagavan in front, keep Dharma in front. Let Dharma drive all of our decisions in life, the chariot of life, the chariot of this body, the road of life. It's amazing. We looked at that example already in the past, right? The five horses, the senses, other things. So, any questions, thoughts here? Okay. We'll close for the week. Then meet next week again. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Om.
Thank you.
Hariom.